Harabim. Is that true that open fields don't have the status of Rishus Hayachid or Rishus Harabim? V'hatnan, but we learned V'habika b'mosachama Rishus Hayachid l'Shabbos. We learned, Rabbi say, that ultimately, again, a bika, fields. Remember, bika means open fields. During the summertime is like a Rishus Hayachid. So Rabbi say, what's the distinction over here? So remember, again, fields are planted with grain. When the grain is in the ground, when the grain is growing, people don't normally traverse fields under those circumstances because they don't want to go ahead and ruin the crop. So once the wheat is harvested, then people will go ahead and walk through a field. So therefore, again, the Gemara says, quoting the Mishnah over here, that during the summer, which means after the harvest has already taken place, ultimately, again, the field has the status of a Rishus Hayachid. Because people will, the Gemara is right, because I'm sorry. So the field during the summertime will be a Rishus Hayachid for Shabbos and a Rishus Harabim for Tumah. Look at Rashi for just a moment. Bimosachama is she'in bazroim. There's nothing growing in the field. Therefore, Rishus Hayachid l'Shabbos tahalav hiluch l'Rabim she'in Rabim mistalkim min hamasila leilech basada. So for Shabbos purposes, so remember, a Rishus Harabim is defined by pedestrian traffic. So even when the field doesn't have produce growing there, people generally won't cut through a field. They'll go ahead and instead use proper or normal roadways. So during the summertime, even when there's no produce, it's still called the Rishus Hayachid for Shabbos. But interestingly enough, it's called the Rishus Harabim l'Tumah. But say, what does that mean? We know that the halacha by Tumah is Safek Tumah b'Rishus Harabim is Tahar. If you have case of doubtful Tumah and Rishus Harabim, ultimately, again, it is Tahar. Safek Tumah b'Rishus Hayachid is Tameh. So ultimately, again, therefore, when it comes to Tumah purposes, this is called the Rishus Harabim. Bimos HaGishamim, but during the rainy season means that ultimately there are crops that are planted inside of the field. Rishus Hayachid l'kan l'kan. Ultimately, this field has the status of a Rishus Hayachid both ways, because obviously once there's produce that's actually growing inside of it, then halacha l'maisa, it's going to be, people won't walk through it, and therefore it's a Rishus Hayachid regardless. Amar Ula. So we'll say, so again, here's the problem. Mar just said before that the bika is not like a Rishus Hayachid, nor is it like a Rishus Harabim. And yet here, according to this Mishnah, seems clear that the bika sometimes is like a Rishus Hayachid, and sometimes is like a Rishus Harabim. But at least for Shabbos purposes, ultimately, again, it's always considered to be a Rishus Hayachid. So what's going on? Amar Ula, li'olam karmelis havya. In reality, a Rishus Hayachid is considered to be a karmelis. Remember, Rabbi says, we saw yesterday, a karmelis is an area that on one hand has certain characteristics of a Rishus Harabim, in that, again, it's a more public sphere, but lacks some element, some detail of Rishus Harabim. For example, more often than not, what it lacks is pedestrian traffic. So really, says the Gemara, so the Olam, really, a bika is a karmelis. V'amai karli Rishus Hayachid. So why does the Mishnah call it a Rishus Hayachid? Lefi she'ina Rishus Harabim. Because since it's not a Rishus Harabim, it calls it a Rishus Hayachid. So I will say, so apparently what the Gemara is saying is that sometimes we'll label a space as a Rishus Hayachid, not because it's really a Rishus Hayachid, but what? Because it's not a Rishus Harabim. All right, Ravashi says no. Top of Zayin, Kigon de Islam Mechitzas. We're talking about a field that has partitions, that has walls around it. The Gemara says, and that's why it's calling it a Rishus Hayachid. Even though, again, it's not really a Rishus Hayachid, as we'll see in just a moment, but because it has walls, it resembles a Rishus Hayachid. V'chihada Amar Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan Karfeif Yoser mi Beis Sasayim Shelo Hukaf Ladira. So we'll say we're going to see a Karfeif. We'll see this more in Eruvin, but a karfeif is an area of two base saw, which is an area of like 50 by 100 amos. So Rabbi says, so a karfeif, which is more than two saw, shelo hukaf ladira, that ultimately again has not been enclosed for residential purposes. Va'afilu kur, va'afilu kurayim, hazorik l'socho chayiv. If one throws an object from Rishus Harabim into an enclosed karfeif, one will be chayiv. Now, interestingly enough, you're talking about a large open area that has a wall, but yet was not walled for residential purposes. Yet the Gemara says that if you're standing in Rosh Hashanah and you throw something into that area, you will be chayiv. My taima mechitzehi ela shemechuseres diyurin. Ultimately, Rabbi will say, why is that? Because here's what's interesting. What the Gemara is introducing us to, and again, we'll talk more about this, is the concept that although ideally, in order to be a Rosh Hashanah, something has to be lived in, but halacha l'maisa, if something has a mechitza, if something has a partition around it, that at least makes it into a quasi Rosh Hashanah. So therefore, if you have a karfeif, which is a large, unlived-in area, but it has a mechitza, that mechitza essentially transforms it into a Rosh Hashanah to the point that if you throw something from the Rosh Harabim into that karfeif, you will be chayiv. So Bishlam Rav Ashi lo Amar Kidu'ula. So we'll say, so now we have two interpretations. Ultimately, again, in terms of why we're calling the bika a Rosh Hashanah. So Ula said, in reality, the bika is really a karmelis. So, but why are we calling it a Rosh Hashanah? To highlight that it's not a Rosh Hashanah. Okay, and Rabbi Yochanan is saying what's the case? Excuse me, Rav Ashi is saying what's the case? The case is ultimately again of a bika that has a wall. That's why we're calling it a Rosh Hashanah. So the Gemara says, Bishlam Rav Ashi lo Amar Kidu'ula. So we'll say, I understand why Rav Ashi doesn't hold of Ula, because he just holds that ultimately again it's a fundamentally different case. Elo Ula, my time Elo Amar Kishmaite. But why doesn't Ula himself subscribe to his idea? Because also remember again, Ula himself was the author of that opinion, who's Ula named Rabbi Yochanan, who said that if you have a karfeif that's enclosed by a wall, that area becomes a Rosh Hashanah. So isn't the easiest way to understand the statement that a bika is a Rosh Hashanah is to understand it as a case of a bika that's surrounded by a wall? To which the Gemara says, Amar Lacha, Idi Isle Mechitzas, bika karile, karfeif kari. So the Gemara says, because Ula would say that if you have a bika that is surrounded by a wall, then what? That is no longer called a bika. That is no longer called a bika. What is that called, Rabbi say? That ultimately is called a karfeif. The Gemara says, Rav Ashi, Rosh Hashanah katani. And Rav Ashi will say, ultimately, again, yes, that's true, but at the end of the day, Rashi says, Rav Ashi, Amr L'cha Rosh Hashanah katani, the Karmelis lo kari latana Rosh Hashanah. So ultimately, Rav Ashi will say, but it's still being called a Rosh Hashanah. And if it was truly a Karmelis, the Tana would not call a Rosh Hashanah a Karmelis, or a Karmelis a Rosh Hashanah. So we'll say, so bottom line, here's what we have. A bika, a field under normal circumstances, is actually still called, a bika is a karmelis. It happens to be that there's something that's occurring over here that is pushing us to call this particular bika a Rishus Hayochid. So there's a machlokes ultimately why that is. There's a machlokes why that is. About what is it that's driving us to call this bika a Rosh Hashanah. So one interpretation says it's really just called a Rosh Hashanah as a way of saying that it's not a Rosh Hashanah. Other opinion says that it's because we're talking about a bika that is surrounded by a wall. Because it's surrounded by a wall, that's why halacha l'mais is called a Rosh Hashanah. Good. So we'll say just definitions. Says the Gemara about Karmelis. So we'll remember again going back to yesterday's Gemara. Going back to yesterday's Gemara. So remember again, we have the idea of the Mishnah is giving us the Daled Reshuyos, the various different domains for Shabbos purposes. So if you remember again, the Brisa did something very interesting, which was it went ahead and gave us all the different Reshuyos. So we had Reshus HaYachid, Reshus HaRabim. Then it gave me the name, like a bunch of different places, the Yam, the Bika, and then it said, and Carmelis. So the Gemara says, that's strange because Yam and Bika are locations. Carmelis is the name of a domain, but aren't all of the places mentioned all a type of Carmelis? To which the Gemara says, Va Carmelis, atu kulhu nami lav Carmelis nenu. Aren't all the places ultimately called a Carmelis? Ki aser avdima am Rabbi Yochanan lo nitzrucha ela lekeren zaves hasmucha l'reshus harabim. So this is actually very interesting. What are we talking about over here? We're talking about a corner in the Rosh Hashanah. So we'll say the best way to imagine this is as follows. Imagine you have a row of homes. Those row of homes are literally right up against the Rosh Hashanah. So we'll say it's not like today, where a person has a house and there's a yard in front of your house, and then there's a small little street, and it feeds into the big street. So imagine you have a house and it's right on the Rosh Hashanah. And I will say, so now what happens? So imagine you have a row of homes right on the Rosh Hashanah, and then you have one home which is recessed. One home which is recessed a little bit. So that little recess over there, so now that little home has a space in between, they call it its front door, and the rest of the Rosh Hashanah. That's called Keren Zavis Hasmucha Rosh Hashanah. That's a corner that is next to the Rosh Hashanah. The Afagav Dizim in the Dachki Beirabim Va'eli Legava, because they will say, what's the chap with that corner? See, normally the public is not going to use that, we'll call it that corner or that indentation space. Why not? Why not? It's not convenient, right? It totally disrupts the flow of traffic. But when will it be used? When there's traffic. When there's traffic. When the Rosh Hashanah gets very congested, so ultimately, again, it will spill over into that indentation there. To which the Gemara says, because so even though when there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, they'll spill into that recess. Nevertheless, kivan delo necha tashmishisei ki karmelis dami. But nevertheless, halacha lemaisa, since it's not easily used, so Rabbi say it's not a convenient use. Therefore, it doesn't have the status of the Rosh Hashanah, rather it has the status of a karmelis. Rabbi say you hear this dramatic ruling. So now what you have over here is something fascinating. Even though, you could picture this in your mind, right? The row of homes, imagine 4 homes, and imagine home number 3 is recessed a little bit back. And therefore what? There's a Rosh Hashanah, and then there's a space. There's like a rectangle that's an additional piece. That's called Siderish, that's called what we'll call Keren Zavis. You can see in the article, you have a picture of this. So we'll say that's called the Keren Zavis. That's the Keren Zavis. So therefore, again, what does the Gemara say? You might have thought that that's called Rosh Hashanah. Why? Because when there is traffic, the rabbim will spill into that. But Kamash Malan, that's what? Kamash Malan, that since it's not a normal use, or an easy use, or a convenient use, therefore what? Therefore, halacha l'maisa doesn't have the status ultimately, again, of Rosh Hashanah, but rather it has the status ultimately. Oh, thank you. I'm good. Thank you so much. It has the status ultimately of a karmelis. Thank you. So the Gemara goes weiter. Both say the area in between the pillars. So this kind of goes back to the status of the place that we called yesterday, the istavis, right? The istavis is that area in front of the shops where you have all of the smaller pillars. And therefore what? That area, technically speaking, the Gemara says, is a karmelis. My taima, afagav de darsi beirabim kivan de lo mistagilo behedja ke karmelis damya. So you begin to see the definition of this new area. So these new areas are areas that are open and accessible to the public, but not easily traversed by the public. You hear this distinction? So this istavis, this pillar area, same thing with the Keren Zavis, the corner in the Rosh Hashanah. These are areas that are open and accessible to the rabbim, so anyone has permission to be there. In that respect, they're public domain, but they don't allow for unimpeded pedestrian traffic. And in the absence of the ability to have unimpeded pedestrian traffic, that can't be called a Rishus Harabim. So what are you? If you are public domain, but don't allow for unimpeded pedestrian traffic, you are now what? You are a karmelis. You are a karmelis. Amar Rabbi Zera, Amar Rabbi Yehuda. It's tava shelifnei ha'amudim nidon ki karmelis. Similarly to Rabbi say, if you have, and this is an additional case, imagine you have an area with smaller pillars, and then you have larger stone tables, which are there as well. Larger stone tables. So what's the halacha? Ha'amudim nidon ki karmelis. Excuse me. It's tashlefnei ha'karmelis. Ha'amudim nidon ki karmelis. So ultimately, again, the area of the pillars has the status of a karmelis. That's kind of what we just said before. To which the Gemara says, "Lamanda amar bein amudim kol shekein itztava." So the one who said that the area between the pillars is considered to be a karmelis, all the more so the area of the stone tables. Lamanda amar itztava, but the one who said the area of the stone tables, itztava hu dolonecha tashmishise. So on the area of the stone tables, where ultimately again you don't have unimpeded use. Aval bein amudim denecha tashmishise, but between the pillars, where ultimately, again, one does have the ability to use the area in a more unimpeded way, low. Ultimately, again, doesn't have the status of a karmelis, but has the status, ultimately, again, of a Rosh Hashanah. So also what you begin to see now is there'll be a further dispute. So we'll say, let's go through our definitions. The definition of Rosh Hashanah is not simply a public area, but it's a public area which possesses certain qualities. Now, we actually haven't seen explicitly what those qualities are, but we'll assume for right now that the qualities are a certain size and a certain level of pedestrian traffic. Those are the qualities. What we now begin to see is a Carmelis is an area which on one hand is a Rosh Hashanah in its essence. It yearns, it pines to be a Rosh Hashanah. In that ultimately, again, it is open and accessible to everyone. But it's missing a detail, and primarily the detail that it's missing is it doesn't allow for unimpeded flow of pedestrian traffic. The shaila is how impeded does the flow have to be to lose its status of Rosh Hashanah to become a Carmelis? That again, that's going to come out more. Lishnachrina, aval bein amudim, between the area of the pillars, zimnin dedarsi rabim kirsh ramdam. So you see this tension. Others say that in the area between the pillars, since ultimately the public will use that space to walk, kirsh rabim damya, that does in fact have the status of a Rosh Hashanah. Amar Rabbi Bar Rav Shila Amar Rav Chisda Levena Zekufa B'Rosh Hashanah. We'll say an interesting case. What happens if you have a brick? Right, a levena zakufa. You have a brick that is standing up. A brick that is a standing up brick. So we'll say, what's talach? A levena zakufa b'Rosh Hashanah v'zarak v'tach b'faneha. And you take something and you throw it at the brick, and the item comes to rest on the brick. The item comes to rest on the brick. Now we'll say, let's define our cases over here a little bit. Take a look at Rashi. Rashi says over here, Levena, Stam Levena, Arka V'Rachba Gimel. So we're talking about a brick that has a height and a width of 3 tfachim. So just to know what's happening over here. You are going ahead, you've stood the brick up. So now the brick is standing at a height of 3 tfachim. Height of 3 tfachim. You go ahead and you throw something at that brick. And now what happens? The item sticks to the brick. V'tach b'faneha, sticks to the brick. So this is just the easiest way to illustrate this is imagine it's like the example the Gemara is going to give is you throw like an overripe date. So an overripe date which is a little bit mushy and sticky, you throw it at the brick and it sticks to the brick. So what's the halacha? So the Gemara says, Zarach v'tach b'faneha chayiv. If it sticks to the side of the brick, ultimately you'll be chayiv, because they're both say since it sticks to the side of the brick, the height of the brick is only what? 3 tfachim. If it sticks to the side of the brick, then what does that mean? It has come to rest where? Within 3 tfachim of the ground. What's the halach of anything within 3 tfachim of the ground? Right? Is that it's considered to be at rest on the ground. So therefore that's as if you've gone ahead and done an act of hanacha and you are chayiv. Al gaba. Now watch this. What happens if the item comes to rest on top of the brick? On top of the brick. What's the halacha? Potter. It will be potter. Now, both say, now this is actually very interesting. Why is it that you will be potter? So if you look at Rashi, potter, second wide line, potter, kidemuki la abayi v'rabbi gova gimel, dilo darsi barabim davimakum liatzma. Both say, so watch this. Abayi v'rabbi darmit havayu, v'hu shegava shlosha. This is only assuming that the brick is at least 3 tfachim high. Dilo darsi la rabim. Both say fascinating. Something that is 3 tfachim taller or more, people don't step on that. Instead, what do people do? People step around it. See, interestingly enough, what we're now seeing over here is that anything that has a certain height in the Rishus Harabim that people won't step on, but they will instead step around, ultimately acquires a separate and distinct status. So therefore, if you throw the item and it lands... a lot of stuff going on over here. I will say, if you throw the item ultimately again, and it lands on top of the brick, halacha l'maaseh, as if it has landed in a different rishus. Now, what rishus is that? It's not a rishus hayachid, and it's not a Carmelis, but ultimately, again, because people in the public sphere would not walk on top of that, therefore it's its own rishus, and you will be chayiv. So the Gemara says, this is very interesting. Aval hizmi v'higi afagav delo gavosh shlosha. Rabbi say things like a thorn bush, right? What about a thorn bush in Rosh Hashanah? Same idea. Halacha l'maisa. People will go ahead and walk on that if halacha l'maisa they have shoes. So we'll say, so interestingly enough, this idea of 3 tfachim of height, making a different rishus, only applies to something that people would not normally walk on. So people don't walk on a brick that is more than 3 tfachim on height. But let's say again, Hizmi v'higi, Rashi says, the darsi alaya b'sandalehen. People will walk on a thorn bush if they're wearing shoes, even if halacha l'maisa has more than 3 tfachim in height. So the Gemara says, "Aval hizi v'afagav delogavay shlosha v'chiyah barav hamar afilu hizmi v'higi." So Chiyah barav says, no, it's not true. Even thorn bushes, Rabbi say, even thorn bushes, halacha l'maisa, people won't walk on. People will walk on, excuse me. So I'll say, I'm sorry, let me go back to that for just a moment. So the Gemara's original idea is that halacha l'maisa, thorn bushes, even if they're less than 3 tfachim in height, people won't walk on top of them. To which the Gemara says, Ravashi Amar afilu, Rechia barav Amar afilu hizmi v'higi. Even thorn bushes, people may walk on. However, aval soa low. But I will say, if there's excrement, people don't walk on that, even if it's less than 3 tfachim in height. Ravashi says, no, it could even be even soa. So we'll say, so what you begin to see is something very interesting over here. What you begin to see is that halacha l'maisa, here's what we know. The principle is that you could have something that is in the public domain that has a certain height in which a person won't walk on it, but rather a person will walk around it. At that point in time, the top of that item essentially becomes a reshus onto itself. And therefore, halacha l'maisa, if you were to throw something from the reshus harabim onto the top of that area, you would be pater, because that would be ki'ilu, you're throwing it into a makom petur, a place ultimately again of exemption. So the Gemara goes weiter. Amar Rabba debei Rav Shila, Kias Rav Dimi Amar Rav Yochanan, Ein Carmelis pechusa me arba. A Carmelis is never less than an area of 4 tfachim. V'amar Rav Sheshes, v'tosefes adasara, and it could go right. It could go up until 10 tfachim. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? My v'tosefes adasara. I will say, what does that statement mean that it could go until 10? Ilema di'ika mechitza asara hu dahavi Carmelis v'ilo lahavi Carmelis. If you want to say that it means that a Carmelis needs to have a mechitza, needs to have a wall that is at least 10 tfachim surrounding it. And if it doesn't have a wall, it's not a Carmelis. V'lo, is that true? V'amarav Gidol Amarav Chiyah Bar Yosef Amarav Bayis She'in B'socho Asara. Both an interesting case. If you have a home that has a very low ceiling, and let's say for argument's sake, there's less than 10 tfachim of interior height. So the area between the floor and the ceiling is less than 10 tfachim. V'kiruyav mashlimu la'asara. But the exterior height of the wall is actually 10 tfachim or more. What's the halacha? Al gago mutter. They will say on the roof of that home, you're allowed to carry on Shabbos. Why? Because we'll say, interestingly enough, the roof has the status of what? Of a reshus hayachid. Why? Because halacha l'maisa has an area of more than dalet tfachim, and it has mechitzos that are at least 10 tfachim. Remember again, we'll see in the world of mechitzos, we often view mechitzos as extending upward and extending downward. So in this case, where the exterior walls of the home are 10 tfachim tall, so you could carry on the roof. You could carry unimpeded on the roof. The roof has the status of Rosh Hashanah. How the Gemara says, "B'socho ein metaltal in bo." Ela dalad amis. But I will say, on the inside of the house, you cannot. The inside of the house does not have the status of a Rosh Hashanah. Why not? Why not? Because interestingly enough, it doesn't have, the walls don't have an interior height of 10 tfachim. So therefore it does not satisfy the criteria of Rosh Hashanah. Therefore you're limited to carrying inside only dalad amas. Elamai v'tosefes ad dalad. So we'll say, so what does it mean therefore that a Carmelis only goes until 10? Da'ad yud hu da'havi Carmelis. Lamala miyud lo havi Carmelis. So what it sounds like it's telling us is that Lamaisa, up until a height of 10, it has the status of Carmelis. More than a height of 10, it's no longer a Carmelis. What does that mean? Literally, again, don't get involved in matters of Shabbos above 10. So what does that mean? So if you want to say that what he was saying was that Rosh Hashanah does not extend higher than 10 tfachim, is that really true? Both say if a person put a pole in the Rosh Hashanah and he put a basket Rashi says, forget about the basket. Person put a pole in the Rosh Hashanah, and what happens? He threw an item from the Rosh Hashanah, and it rested on top of the pole. So I'm standing in Rosh Hashanah, there's a pole in the Rosh Hashanah, the pole extends up. I throw something from the Rosh Hashanah, from the Rosh Hashanah, and it comes to rest on top of the pole. What's the halacha? Afilu gavoa mea ama chayiv. Even if the pole is more than 100 amas, ultimately, again, I am chayiv. Why? Mipnei shirishus hayachid ola ad l'rakia. Because the private domain extends all the way up to the heavens. Rabbi say, so just keep these points in mind because they're exceptionally important. So we'll say a concept like this: Rishus Harabim only extends up until 10 tfachim. Right above 10 tfachim, that's no longer the airspace of Rishus Harabim. Rishus Hayochid, however, extends all the way up, Ella, Omid Bezer will say. So rather, what does it mean? Ella de'ein Rishus Harabim lamala miyud. Rather, I will say what it was coming to teach us is Rishus Harabim does not extend above 10 tfachim. That's what it's coming to teach us. That halacha l'maisa, although the airspace of a Rishus Hayachid extends all the way up, the airspace of Rishus Harabim only goes until 10 tfachim. To which the Gemara says, okay, but mas nisinhi. They both say that's the Mefurish Mishnah. This nan hazorik dalet amas bakosel. Both says it's an interesting case. If a person goes ahead and throws dalet amas, now both say just to appreciate what we're going to define this case a little bit. Rashi says over here, hazorik dalet amas b'rishus harabim v'nidbak bakosel kigon devela shmeina. So we'll say, so apparently again, overripe, juicy, schmaltzy, sticky figs seem to be the item of choice for today's daf. So we'll say, so what's happening over here? I'm standing in Rosh Hashanah, and I go ahead and I throw the item, and it travels dalet amas, and it sticks to the wall. So again, I'm throwing something at a wall. I'm standing in Rosh Hashanah, I throw something at a wall, and it travels dalet amas, and it sticks to the wall. So what's the halacha? But say if the item sticks to the wall and the item landed at more than a height of 10 tefachim, then what's the halacha? Kizorik ba'avir. It's as if the item has still come to rest. Which Rabbi say means what? Meaning why is that? Or let me say differently. Because remember, Rishus Harabim only extends where? Up until 10 tefachim. Higher than 10 tefachim is no longer than Rishus Harabim. So Rabbi say, so if I throw the fig and it sticks to the wall at a height above 10 tefachim, then halacha l'maisa, I have not violated anything. It is as if that item is still continuously traveling through the air. However, l'matam yutfachim, if halacha l'maisa the item lands on the wall at less than a height of 10 tefachim, kizorek ba'aretz. Then Rabbi say it is as if the item has come to rest on the ground, and I am chayiv for an act of hotzah. To which the Gemara says, okay, so Rabbi say, in other words, so I don't need another statement to teach me about the height of a Rishus Harabim. I already know. The halacha is that a Rishus Harabim, Rabbi says, so again, you keep all of these details in your mind, that the height of a Rishus Harabim only extends to 10 tefachim. Above 10 tefachim will be what we call makom p'tur, exempted area. So I already know that. So therefore, what was the meaning of the statement before? Ella a karmelis. Rather, Rabbi say, it must be in the statement regarding 10 tefachim was somehow related to karmelis. What does it mean? De'ein karmelis the malamiyud. Then I will say ultimately we're being taught that a karmelis also does not extend above a height of 10 tefachim. That if you have a karmelis, the airspace of a karmelis only goes up until a height of 10 tefachim. So I will say what you see over here is something fascinating. So I will say when it comes to airspace, so remember, by the way, 10 tefachim is not a lot, right? 10 tefachim is like 3.5 feet. 3.5 feet. Answers your question? Good. See you guys clearing this over here. David's counting, right? 3.5 feet. Right? So really, it's not very tall. So what you see over here is as follows. A Rishus Hayachid has an airspace that's Ola L'Rakia, which I will say, by the way, happens to be a fascinating, it's not our topic now, we'll get to this when we get to the Bubbas, that when you own property, you own airspace along with that property. This is like a major Choshen Mishpat issue, right? I have a house, my house has views. Someone else owns a lot in front of me, right? So what's my claim lagabe views? I own airspace also. So we'll see all those. But again, for Shabbos purposes, airspace of private domain, Ola ad Rakia, goes all the way up. For public domain, Rosh Hashanah in Karmelis, only up until Yud. And I will say, what do you see from here? You see from here a very important takeaway message. Va'akila barabanan. I will say, therefore, when it comes to Carmelis, essentially, again, as we're going to see, is like the Carmelis has details of a Rishus HaYachid and a Rishus HaRabim. Va'akila barabana mekula Rishus HaYachid or mekula Rishus HaRabim. The rabbis gave the Carmelis certain leniencies of a Rishus HaYachid and certain leniencies of a Rishus HaRabim. Mekule Rishus HaYachid. So we'll say, how does the Carmelis have from some of the leniencies of a Rishus HaYachid? De'i'i makom arba'a hu dahavya Carmelis. Then I will say, ultimately, again, just like a Rishus HaYachid is only a Rishus HaYachid, if what? If it has an area of at least Dalit Tfachim, so to a Carmelis is also only considered to be a proper area if it has a space of at least 4 Tfachim. V'ilo, and if it doesn't have 4 Tfachim, makom p'tor ba'almahu. So we'll say, so that's in one respect, a Carmelis has quote unquote some of the leniencies of Rosh Hashanah. Now we'll say it doesn't really mean leniencies. What it means is what? Details. The Carmelis has traits of a Rosh Hashanah and traits of a Rosh Hashanah. It has the traits of a Rosh Hashanah. It's that just like a Rosh Hashanah, if it doesn't have a minimum space of Dalit Tfachim, it's not a Rosh Hashanah, it's a Makom P'tor, a place of exemption. So to the Carmelis, if the Carmelis doesn't have at least 4 Tfachim of space, it's also called a Makom P'tor. On the other respect, Nikol Rosh Hashanah, Da'ad Yud Tfachim Hu Dahav Ye Carmelis. So we'll say it's also like Rosh Hashanah. And that's what? The Rosh Hashanah ultimately, again, only has an airspace of up to 10 Tfachim, so to a Carmelis also only has space of up to 10 Tfachim. So I will say again, we continue really in this topic, ultimately of fleshing out these various Rishuyos. So again, so far we have our Rishus HaYachid, which requires a minimum of Dalid by Dalid, and a Mechitza of 10 Tfachim. Airspace going all the way up ad Shamayim. Rishus Harabim. So remember again, has to be an area. We haven't really defined what it is yet, but what we know is it must be a certain size. What that size is, Rashi already told us that it has to be 16 amos in width. 16 amos in width. So whatever that is, do 16 times 1.5, and that'll give you the amount of feet in width, and really requires pedestrian traffic of 600,000. That's ultimately again what is a Rishus Harabim. A Carmelis, which is a little bit of a hybrid model. And I will say again, and when it comes to Rosh Hashanah, if you have an area that has, let's say, the dimensions, but at the end of the day does not necessarily have the pedestrian traffic, that'll become much more like a Carmelis. So what's a Carmelis? A Carmelis is a hybrid area. On one hand, it doesn't have necessarily the details of a Rishus HaYachid, but yet it must have at least a makom of dalid al dalid. But its airspace only goes up to 10, like a Rishus Harabim, but yet it must have dalid al dalid like a Rishus Hayachid. So we'll say, so essentially the Carmelis is really going to be a public area that essentially does not really live up to the criteria of unimpeded pedestrian traffic. Good. Gufa. Let's go a little bit weiter. Gufa. Amarav Gidol, Amarav Chia Bar Yosef, Amarav. Bayis she'ein tocho yud v'kiruya mashtumul yud. So let's go back to a case we had before. You have this fascinating case of a home that has an interior area of dalid al dalid, but yet does not have interior wall space of yud. So the interior walls do not measure 10 tefachim in height. Now, both say the exterior height of the walls is more than 10 tefachim, but which means essentially, what are you dealing with over here? A house with a very, very low ceiling. So a very low ceiling. So therefore, the interior area of the interior height of the walls is less than 10 tefachim, but the exterior height of the walls is more than 10 tefachim. So what's the halacha? Vikiruya of Mashlimo liyud al gago mutal taltal bekulo bisocho im metalpulin bo ela bedalaram. So we'll say, if you're standing on the roof, right? If you're standing on the roof, you could carry all throughout the roof. Why? Because the roof has an area of dalid al dalid, and what? By the time you get to the roof, the mechitzos do have a height of 10 tefachim. Also, remember again, just so you'll understand, the way we view those mechitzos of the home is how? As if they extend all the way up. So therefore, the rooftop is a bona fide Rishus HaYachid. The Gemara says, Amra Abaye, v'imchakak bo dalid al dalid v'ishlim yud mutal taltal bekulo. So I'll say, interestingly enough, if you went inside the house and dug out an area of dalid by dalid. So we'll say what you did over here. Let's say you went in the house, you did a little home renovation, and you dug out a square inside the floor of the home that is dalid by dalid. That is 4 tfachim by 4 tfachim. So now we'll say, what do you have? You have an area of 4 tfachim of 4 tfachim, and you dug down into the ground. Why did you dig down into the ground? Because this way, when you're standing in the hole, right? When you're standing, what do you have? What do you have? You do have mechitzos that are yud tfachim high. So essentially, what you did is you dug down into the floor of the home, so that now I'm standing where I'm standing. The mechitzos are in fact 10 tfachim high. Ultimately, you could go ahead and carry throughout the entire house. Interestingly enough, you hear that? You carry throughout the entire house, even beyond the dalid by dalid square. My time, what's the reason for this? Have a chori rishus hayochid. Ultimately, again, I will say, because interestingly enough, now the areas that surround the dalid by dalid excavation have the status of what? Chore literally means like the crevices of rishus hayochid. The chore rishus hayochid kirishus hayochid damu. And I will say the crevices of rishus hayochid have the status of rishus hayochid. So kind of just to give you a little bit of what this is comparable to. If you remember again, over the last 2 days, so we've seen examples of like Chore Rishus Harabim, Keren Zavis Rishus Harabim, Tzidei Rishus Harabim, which are areas that are right next to the Rishus Harabim. And we've seen already there's discussion, are they like Rishus Harabim, not like Rishus Harabim? So what the Gemara is now suggesting is as follows. That same concept applies to Rishus HaYachid. So what the Gemara is suggesting is if you have a Rishus HaYachid, and then you have an area right next to that Rishus HaYachid, all enclosed by the same walls, the area next to the Rishus HaYachid takes on what? The status of the Rishus HaYachid itself. You hear this? Getting a lot of blank stares. Right? You hear this? Is this thing on? Is this thing on? Okay. Well, see here this, meaning you see what's happening over here. So you have a house, let's go through the case. You have a house that has interior airspace of less than 10 tfachim. What does that mean for the interior of the house? What is that? So we'll say essentially it kind of becomes like a Rishus Harabim, pretty much like, because again, you can't carry more than Dalet Amis inside of that area because it does not go ahead and live up to the criteria of Rishus HaYachid. If it's not a Rishus HaYachid and it's not a Makom P'tur, then it's either a Carmelis or a Rishus Harabim. So therefore, again, you're limited to carrying anything Dalet Amis. Interestingly enough, what's the status of the roof? Bona fide Rishus HaYachid. Why? Because that's an area that's dalid al dalid. And remember, the height of the exterior walls are yutfachim. So now Abaye says something very interesting. If you go inside the house and you dig out on the floor an area of dalid by dalid, you dig down. So now when you stand in that dalid by dalid square, what's the height of the walls? 10 tfachim. So Abaye says, so now, obviously, when you're in the square, that's Rishus HaYachid. But now the Chiddush Abaye says is it also makes the rest of the interior of the house Rishus HaYachid. Because what does the rest of the interior become? What the Gemara calls Chorei Rishus HaYachid. The crevices, right? The crevices of the Rishus HaYachid. And crevices of the Rishus HaYachid have the status of Rishus HaYachid itself. The Itmar, because we learned Chorei Rishus HaYachid, Kirshus HaYachid Damu. It was like crevices a chor literally means like a hole. So the truth is, hole or a crevice. You'll see why the Gemara uses that lashon, but really what it means is what? Areas to the side of the Rishus HaYachid, within the walls of the Rishus HaYachid, still have the status of what? The Rishus HaYachid itself. Chor Rishus Harabim. So I'll say, what about again the crevices of the Rishus Harabim? Abaye Amar Kirshus Harabim Damu. Abaye says that the status of Rishus Harabim. Rava Amar Lav Kirshus Harabim Damu. And Rava says ultimately they do not have the status of Rishus Harabim. Amarli Rava La Abaye. So Rava said to Abaye as follows. Lididach to Amrit Chorish Sam Kirshus Harabim Damu. If you hold that the crevices of the Rishus Harabim ultimately again have the status of Rishus Harabim, Mai Shna Meha. Why is it any different than the following case? Now watch this case. Techi Asrav Dimi An Rabbi Yochanan. Lo nitzrecha ela lekeren zavis hasmucha l'Rishus Harabim. So we'll say, I don't know, let's go back. Remember again the case we just had a little while ago. You have, we'll call it three homes that abut the Rishus Harabim. Let's say the middle home is recessed a little bit. Shabbos say, so that area in between the home, and we'll call it the Rishus Harabim proper. We call that on Amud Aleph, Keren Zavas Rishus Harabim, a corner of the Rishus Harabim. If you remember, Shabbos say from Amud Aleph, what's the status of that area? What's the status of that area? The Gemara said it's a Carmelis. It's a Carmelis. Why is it a Carmelis? Because even though when there's a lot of pedestrian traffic, there'll be spillover into that corner, right into that rectangle of recess, right, that recessed rectangle. But nevertheless, because it's not easy to use, therefore it doesn't have the status ultimately again of Rosh Hashanah. I don't understand. You just said now that what? That halacha l'maisa, crevices of Rosh Hashanah are like what? Are like Rosh Hashanah. So if that's the case, then that recessed rectangle should really be part of Rosh Hashanah. To which the Gemara says, to which the Gemara says, here's the fundamental difference. Hasam lo necha tash meshise. Hacha necha tash meshise. To which the Gemara says, here's the distinction. We'll say halacha l'maisa. So there in the recessed rectangle, there's no ease of use. When there's no ease of use, ultimately, it means that it's not normal for people to use it. So because it's not easy and truly usable, therefore what? Therefore, halacha l'maisa, ultimately it doesn't have the status of Rishus Harabim. Hacha, the case of Chori Rishus Harabim, which we have not seen yet exactly what that case is, but the case of Chori Rishus Harabim is a case of something that's a crevice, but easily used. Rabbi says, you hear the distinction here? If you have a situation of an area that is easily used and it abuts the Rosh Hashanah, so that'll have the status of Rosh Hashanah. But if an area abuts the Rosh Hashanah, but is not easily used, then what? That's not called Rosh Hashanah. So what will that be called? Carmelis. The Gemara says, so what's the case? Tanan. This is very interesting. Well, at least begin this case today. Hazorik Dalet Amas Bekotel. Right, because a person goes in and throws Dalet Amas, and the object comes to rest on a wall. Rabbi says, so again, it's not immediately clear what type of object we are referring to, although again, of course, when it comes to throwing object at walls, our natural predisposition is assume what is being thrown? A ripe, sticky, schmaltzy date, right? That's what we're going to say. And again, good news is that's what we're going to come out to, but we have to work through this. So, a person throws an object for Amos, and we're assuming what this means right now is it comes to rest in the wall. So the malam yud, if it comes to rest above yud tfachim, kizorek ba'avir. Then I will say it's as if the object is continuously traveling. In other words, we saw that before. Why? Because the airspace of Rosh Hashanah only extends until where? Only extends until yud. So this is very interesting. So if you throw an object and it hits the wall and it sticks to the wall above yud, you're not chayiv for that. Lamatam yud tfachim, but if it comes to rest below 10 tfachim, kizorik ba'aretz. Ultimately, again, it is as if it is coming to rest on the ground. Vavidama, we asked about this. My kizorik ba'aretz, what does it mean if it's coming to rest on the ground? V'halo nach, I don't understand, but it hasn't come to rest on the ground. In other words, what's the case? How can you say that it's come to rest on the ground if it actually hasn't come to rest on the ground? To which the Gemara says, V'amar Rabbi Yochanan, b'dvela shmeina shanu. What are we talking about? We'll say, like we said before, a sticky, schmaltzy, overripe fig. That's the case. That's where it's coming to rest on the wall. Here we go. Lama li lo ukma b'dvela shmeina, lukma b'tzrar v'chefetz udinach b'char. So we'll say the Gemara asks an interesting question. If you want to assume over here that halacha l'maisa, why do you have to set it up? So we'll say what the Gemara is going to ask is as follows. We're going to stop actually over here at this point, but I'll just say where we're leaving off. Where we're leaving off is as follows. The Gemara is presupposing that we're once again talking about a case of a fig. And therefore the case that we're dealing with over here is if the fig sticks to the wall above 10, then halacha l'maisa you're pater. Below 10, you'll be chayiv. Because again, once the object sticks to the wall, it's come to rest. To which the Gemara is, why do you have to go ahead and set this up as a case ultimately of a sticky fig? Whereas you could just as easily set this up as what? Dealing with the case of what Rabbi say, where there's a hole in the wall. And therefore, what are you doing? You're throwing, let's say, a pebble or a stone, and we can be talking about a case ultimately where the item comes to rest inside of the wall itself. Because after all, what are we saying? Chorei kirshus harabim is like what? Is like what? The holes or the crevices of Shabbos are just like what? Just like Rosh Hashanah itself. So again, we'll stop over here for today. I know I'm leaving kind of in the middle of the case, but we'll continue with this case. Shat over tomorrow. Shkach, we'll say. Recorded.